All right. Today we'll learn a couple JavaScript commands and continue working on the color project that we started 2 weeks ago. We previously used the if-else command to turn on and turn off fireworks. And today we're going to look at this command in more details. Last time we created a function which moves the red button, the red slider, and changes the intensity of the background color. Today, we'll try to create an input which will allow us moving either slider or all of them at once. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a new input to our HTML code, like so. So here, this is an input type text. So it's going to be a text field. This is its ID. And here we just put this text in front of it, just so we know what it is. And this is what it's going to look like. So previously, we made it so that when we click this button, the red slider moves. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a new variable to our JavaScript code called color. And this variable just represents this element here. Now let's see how it works. So what we're going to do is we're going to disable this for loop. These slashes and asterisks in this order just indicate the code that we want to deactivate first. So the computer ignores this code. And now what we're going to do is we're going to log in our console the text in the color text field, like so. Now, when we refresh the page and type something in the color field and click the button, it prints whatever's in the text field to the console. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that when when the button is clicked, we're going to check the value of the text field, and if a value is equal to red, we're going to move the red slider. So here I'm going to reactivate this for loop again. And I'm going to add an if. And we're going to do if color.value is equal to red. Then we run this for loop. Now, I don't think I explained what this double equal sign does previously. So before, we only used the single equal sign. And this equal sign in JavaScript means assign this value on the right to the variable on the left. However, this double equal sign is a boolean operator which compares these two values, and if they're equal to each other, then it's true. If they're not, then they're false. If we put one equal sign in here, then this might either throw an error, so there will be an error in the console and it won't work, or what it's going to happen is it's going to assign this value, this boolean value, to this variable, and then it's going to compare the value of this variable in the if. And since this is a string in an if, it's going to convert the string to a boolean. And so the way it converts it is if the string is empty, like so, or it's equal to null, then it will be false. But if it's not either of these, then it will be true. So now let's actually run this code with a single equal sign. And you'll notice when I click this button, it changes the text field, the value of the text field to red, and moves the slider, which is not what we want in our code. So we're going to use the double equal sign. So here it says red, so it's going to move. Now, if I change this, it won't move. Now, if we enter green, this is not going to move the green slider. So let's actually make it so that it moves the green slider as well. So first thing we're going to do is this function is called move red slider, which will not really be true since we actually will move other sliders as well. So let's actually rename this to move slider. This won't change how the code works, but it will make more sense. Now, next in here, I'm going to add an else. So if this condition is not true, and then in this else, I'm going to put another if. But here, we're going to check the value of a green text field. Sorry, the green, if the value of a text field is equal to green. And if it is, then we're going to move the green slider. So let's see how it works. So the text of the button changed, and when green is inputted, it changes the green slider. Red still changes the red slider. However, if we input blue, this won't actually do anything. Now, what we have to do in order to make it work is copy this if, else if. Oh, sorry. Paste it again, and this time we're going to check if the value of the text field is blue. And if it's true, then we do the same for loop, but with the blue slider. When we refresh the page, so here we have blue. This moves a blue slider. This moves a red slider. This moves a green slider. However, there's one issue with this. If we, instead of red with an uppercase, we enter red with a lowercase, this will move the slider. And that is because in JavaScript, strings are case sensitive. So red with an uppercase is not the same as red with a lowercase. So we need to somehow check if the value of the text field is either uppercase red or lowercase red. And we do this using a JavaScript operator called the OR operator, which looks like this. Here we're going to check if the value of a text field is equal to red with a lowercase. So what this OR operator does is it checks if the value of a text field is equal to this or this. Actually, well, it takes, it's a boolean operator, which compares the conditions on either side, and if either of them is true, or at least one of them is true, then it'll output true. So in our case here, if we have uppercase red, then this is going to be true. This is going to be false. The output is going to be true. If this is if the value of a text field is equal to lowercase red, then this is going to be true. This is going to be false, but the output is going to be true. If it's neither, let's say it's green or something, then neither of them is true, and it's going to be false. And so if we save and run this, here it works with lowercase red, and it also works with uppercase red. So let's do the same thing with all the other ifs. Except here we'll have lowercase green, lowercase blue. And this should work regardless of the case. Yeah. However, you'll notice if the slider is already moving and we click the button again, the slider will move back to the beginning. Sorry, Alice, do you have a question?
And can you like when you do like blue and you like click a move slider and then you click green, would they work at the same time?
Yeah, they will. So look, here. Blue. Oh, this is fast. Okay, if I type green, blue. Okay, I'm not fast enough at typing, but they will work at the same time. And actually, in a few minutes, I'll show an example of moving multiple sliders at the same time. But right now, all of these sliders are independent, so they can each move pretty much on their own, regardless of what the other sliders are doing. Okay, but when we click the slider multiple times, it returns to the beginning. And we don't want that to happen. We want the slider to move all the way to the right before we are able to move it back to the beginning again. And we're going to do this using the AND operator. So first, before we do this, I'm going to surround this with brackets. And this is what the AND operator looks like. Oh, whoops. So the AND operator is another boolean operator, and it takes the value on either side, and it will only output true if both of them are true. So, and in here, so this OR operator should output true, and this condition has to be true in order for this if to work. And what we do here is we check the value of a red slider. Oh, sorry, this should probably be like this. So the value of a red slider has to be equal to 255 in order for us to be able to run this for loop and move the red slider. The reason I put the brackets is because if I don't, JavaScript is going to work from right to left, and is going to compare this condition and this condition. And then the OR is going to be this and this, which is not what we want. So actually, if you're unsure of the order in which the Boolean operators will work, I suggest you just put stuff in brackets, just to be sure that it'll work in the order that you want it to work in. Now, I'm going to do the exact same thing for all the other ifs, and this should work. Now, when we refresh the page, no matter how much I click the button, the blue slider does not restart once it's already moving. Same with the red slider, and same with the green slider. Next thing, what I want to do is make it so that whenever you type something that is not red, green, or blue, and click Move Slider, it will move all the sliders at once. And the way to do it is we're just going to put else. So if neither of these conditions are true, and in this else, I'm going to put a for loop that I made in advance. And this for loop looks really complicated at first, but it is actually not as hard as it seems. So here we have 3 segments in our for loop. And in our first segment, we have this this line of code. And what happens here is JavaScript assigns variables from right to left. So what we do here is first this runs, and we set the value of the blue slider to 0. Then here we set the value of a green slider to the value of a blue slider, which is 0. And here we set the then after we set the value of a red slider to the value of a green slider, which is 0. And with this line, we just set all the values to 0. The reason I did that instead of just setting all the values individually is because in the for loop, we can only really put one line of code in here. In here we have our condition, and it's just as long as the value of a red slider is less than 255. This can actually be any slider because they're all moving at the same time. And here we have same kind of idea as in here. So what we do is we increment the value of a blue slider, so increase it by 1, then set this value to the green slider and set that value to the value of a red slider. And in the result, all of these sliders will increment. And now in here, there's actually a difference between using prefix and postfix form. Because with prefix form, we first increment, and then we set this new incremented value to each of the other sliders. However, if we use postfix form, it will take this value without incrementing it and set it to these 2 sliders, and only then it's going to increment. So the value of a blue slider will always be one more than the value of all the other sliders. Now I'm going to show you how it works. So red still works, green still works, blue still works, and if we have just something random, all of them move at once. Or we can just not type anything and it'll still move at once. And now let's take a look how this works in microbit. However, we'll use icons instead of colors. Okay, so in here, first we declare a new variable called I and set it equal to 0. And then in here, we register a new event handler. So when the A button is pressed, it runs this event handler that I made. And so let's press the A button. So first it increments I. So I is now equal to 1. And then it checks the value of I in this block of code. So here I is equal to 1. This is true. So it should show the heart icon, which it does. Now if we press the button again, I is now equal to 2. So it should show the icon of a square. This condition doesn't work because I is not equal to 1. Now if we press it again, neither of these are true. But this is true, so this should draw the no icon. Oh, sorry. This should draw the no icon, as it does right now. Now, if we click it another time, it should show the yes icon. Now, when we click it again, I is going to be 5, so neither of these 4 is going to be true. And it's going to do whatever's in this else. So in here, it'll clear the screen and set I to 0. So here it clears the screen and I is now 0, which means that when we press it again, the cycle will repeat. And this will work an infinite amount of times. And the reason we're not using colors in here is because the microbit only has red lights on its LED display. So we have to use icons. Now, if we switch to blocks, this is what our code looks like. However, you'll notice here that you'll notice here that we never actually declare the variable I, but we have the event handler. So when the button A is pressed, changes I by 1, then has this if else if construction, showing all the icons here, clear screen sets I to 0. But yeah, as I said, I isn't declared anywhere, no matter how much we zoom out. But if we go back to the JavaScript code, it's still there. I'm not sure why this works like that, but I think it's because I is a very common variable to use in for loops as an iterator. I is actually short for iterator. So probably in the blocks, it is already declared somewhere. So it's not declared a second time. However, in JavaScript, it's not declared anywhere, so we have to declare it. Now when we switch from JavaScript to blocks to JavaScript, microbit actually changed some of the JavaScript code. So you'll notice here, it changed ++I to I plus equals 1, which does the exact same thing. It's just another way of writing it. And another thing that it changed is it added these brackets around the things after the if, the commands after the if. This doesn't change the way it works because if the if command runs whatever is the if else switch, for loop, while loop, pretty much any command of that type will run the line of code that is right after it when the condition is true. So in our case, we only have one line of code after the if. So it will run it regardless if we have brackets or not. Brackets are used to define a block of code, so everything in this block of code is run. In this case, brackets are optional. The only place where they're needed in here is in this sort of block of code. And this is because we have two commands that have to be run. And if we don't have brackets, only this one will be run as part of this if-else block. Now, this is all that I want to explain today. Next week, I'm going to show you a way to simplify this whole thing using another command because all these if, else, ifs are very bulky and they take up a lot of space. Does anyone have any questions? No? All right. Then this is it for today. Thank you for listening, everyone. Have a good long weekend.